So this is a bit of a different kind of video today, bridging the gap between Season 4 and Season 5 of The Walking Dead. I finished Season 4 yesterday or the day before. I think it was the day before. But yeah, Season 4's done now, which means I only have 3 more seasons of The Walking Dead to catch up on. But I thought I'd make a video or two to kind of bridge the gap, and just to do something a bit different, but still related to The Walking Dead. And so I thought I would list my 10 favourite characters in the show so far. So straight off the bat, this was a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I kind of had some names flying about in my head, and I was like, well, there can't be that many characters, can there? There are a lot of fucking characters in this show. So it is a mix of characters who are still alive, and some who are, unfortunately, no longer with us. Obviously, there might be characters you love who are in Season 5, 6 and 7 and have yet to appear in the show for me. So obviously they're not going to be here. And I stay away from kind of the public opinion when it comes to the show because I'm not caught up yet and I don't want anything spoiled. So I don't really know like the general consensus about a lot of characters. I mean, I know Daryl's like a fan favourite. That's about it. That's the extent of my knowledge. Some of my choices might be characters people hate. Some characters might be others that people love as well. So at least you know that this list isn't influenced by public opinion. This is literally me. So I'm sorry if you hate every single person on this list, but you know, people have different opinions. That's kind of how it works. Like, I don't know how popular Rick is, since he's kind of like the main guy in the show. But he's not in my top 10. Sorting it out, he would be like 11 or 12. I really didn't know. I found this really difficult to decide. And some of them I've kind of been a bit cheeky with. But Rick and Shane were like that close to making it. And you know, it could be like a different list tomorrow if I did this again. But this is what I'm going to stick with for now. So my number 10 is being a bit cheeky because this guy's been in about 3 episodes so far. But there's just something about him I really, really like. And I just think he's really fucking cool. And that's Abraham. Sergeant Abraham, I should say. I just really love his cutthroat attitude. He's got an interesting story, I think. The fact that he's trying to get Eugene to Washington to save the world. And his commitment to that, I think, is commendable. And he's had some really funny lines, and I don't know, I feel like deep down he's just a genuinely sweet guy. And that little goodbye scene with Glen and Tara when they were going to go into that tunnel and they were going to find a vehicle and drive around, I thought that was a really nice scene. I love how he's interacting with the characters we've known longer than him. And at a point during that scene I thought, oh, so this is the end of these characters then, that kind of sucks. I want them to stick around. And I think that shows an attachment to them. So yeah, there's just something about Abraham I really, really like. And I think the more I see of him, he'll probably go higher up in the list. But the only reason he's 10 and only scraping past like Rick and Shane for that spot is because we really haven't seen much of him yet. So number 9 is, I think, someone that I like that a lot of people may not, and that's Dale, who's only in season 1 and 2. But I kind of grew attached to him because, similar to another entry on this list, he reminds me of someone I know, and I just thought he was a really sweet old man, and he had some genuinely touching moments, especially with Andrew and Amy and their kind of relationship that he had with them. And I liked how he was so desperate to cling on to humanity and to cling on to doing the right thing, even in the world of an apocalypse. And I like that he stood up for himself against Shane. You know, if I was staring down John Bernthal, I'd be like, you do whatever the fuck you want, mate. But Dale didn't. He didn't take any shit from Shane. And that is commendable in itself. And his death was kind of the one that really shook me up first, I think, in the whole show. Obviously, there have been other deaths since then that have fucking destroyed me. But I think that was kind of the first big moment for me, losing Dale. You know, when I have seen posts online about Walking Dead and everything, no one ever mentions Dale, I don't think. The characters on the show certainly don't anymore. I mean, they barely mention Andrea anymore, I think. She got mentioned in the finale, but I can't remember much else since she died. I don't know. But I still fondly remember him, and I don't know, I just really liked the sweetness and the fact that he was the old guy but still buggering on, really. But there have been loads of new characters introduced since Dale, who I've loved even more. So number 8 is Philip Blake, aka the Governor, who I thought was an incredible villain for the show. His whole arc, I think, was done really well. And, you know, as soon as we met him and we discovered he had like severed heads in the secret room and his daughter was a walker but he kept her chained up, I was kind of hooked on the character ever since that revelation. He was an extremely complicated man, and I think one of the most complex characters the show's had so far. And David Morrissey's performance, I think, just elevated my love for the Governor even further. And yes, he did. He killed Hershel. And I will not forgive him for that. I could forgive him for practically anything else, but not that. But I think he was a really effective villain for the show. Probably my favourite villain we've had so far, in terms of, you know, human villains. I don't know what's to come, but I think the Governor might be hard to top. We'll have to wait and see. I just loved his character progression and how he just kept losing things. And then, you know, he fell further than he ever had to build himself back up, took over another group of people, and then went for a final stand down with Rick and the gang at the prison. He didn't get to a point where I was like, he needs to just die already. I think it was kind of stretched out a bit. If he'd like lasted the whole of season 4, I think that probably would have been a bit too long. But having him die in the mid-season finale was, I think, an appropriate length of time for him to be a villain. And he quite literally went out with a bang and got shot in the fucking face. But he served his purpose really well. David Morrissey was fantastic. And I don't think we've seen a more complex and interesting character since him. So number 7 is Mel Dixon, of course. Another kind of... I suppose he would be a villain, wouldn't he? But you had to love Merle, didn't you? I met Michael Rooker at a convention in London a month or so ago. He seems like a really nice guy. I just loved how he kind of took no bullshit. And when he was loyal, he was fucking loyal. He was loyal to the Governor until he wasn't. And he was always loyal to Daryl. And at first he was kind of just a shouty git, really. A grumpy guy who you could easily hate. But then there's one moment where he sees like scars on Daryl's back that his dad had given him, and the look on his face, he's like heartbroken. And there's just a depth to him that I don't think the show explored enough. I think he was killed off quite early. Way too early. I'd love to have seen more of him, because he really wasn't in it that long at all. But he left an impact, and, you know, his weakness when it came to Daryl was really endearing. He had loads of funny lines. And while he wasn't a particularly pleasant person, he was still easy to love. And I don't think many characters can balance that as well as Mel did. So number 6 on my list is Maggie. I think at first I really liked Maggie, mainly because of her relationship with Glen. But in time she came into her own. And the sheer love she's capable of having for people, I think, even in an apocalyptic world, is kind of inspiring. and especially her love for Glen, it's just undying and unwavering, and she really believes in the people she loves, and that's a quality I don't think a lot of people in the show have, and for good reason, but Maggie still holds on to that, and you know, her love for Glen and Beth and Hershel and all her friends is actually quite sweet, considering how much shit the world throws at her every single day. I think she's genuinely smart. She's easy to get along with, I think. She gets along with like every single character. She shows respect. She's so fucking brave. You know, when the governor took her and Glen and he did all sorts of shit to her, she got on and she just accepted it because she needed to keep Glen safe, and she would do anything to ensure that. She's just a really strong character. No matter how much she loses, she holds on to the love she has for others, and that's pretty fucking commendable. Number 5 is Daryl Dixon, who I know is a fan favourite, and I also know he wasn't actually in the comics, which is quite interesting considering he's still around after all this time, even though he was invented for the show. I mean, I've always had a lot of love and respect for Daryl because he's such a fucking badass, and he'll be sarcastic and snarky, but he'll get the fucking job done, and he will kill all sorts of shit. And, you know, he's Action Man, really, and that's badass in itself. But as time's gone on, we've seen more layers to him. You know, how he was like sobbing as he had to kill Merle, who'd been turned into a walker. His relationship with Carol that developed from like season 2 and 3. I thought that was beautiful. And I think the episode was called Cherokee Rose. He was so sweet with Carol in that episode. And ever since then, he's had a lot of moments where he kind of lets this guard down and takes his mask off, and he's actually a really emotional person. And we definitely saw that this season when he was alone with Beth and he just broke down, and Beth was like holding on to him, and he just felt so guilty for not doing anything about the governor's attack, and that eventually cost them Hershel and the prison. So he was in danger of just becoming like the action hero, the brute kind of character. But he's a lot more layered than that. And there's so much more to him. I don't think we've even kind of scratched the surface of, you know, what a tragic past he's been through. I think the reason why he's, you know, number 5 on the list is because I'm really, really excited to learn more about him and see him be his badass self. Number 4 is the badass that is Michonne. I can never remember how to say it, but she's a badass either way. When she was first introduced, she barely said a word, ever. And yet, you know, she had these swords that she was badass with, and she had walkers on chains, so she was clever, she'd worked that out. And it's kind of similar to how Daryl's character progressed. They seem like this unmoved badass, but then layers are peeled away. We find out about a kind of tragic backstory for her. She lost her son, she lost her partner and their friend. She lost so much, and by losing them, she lost herself. And then, like she said in the finale to season 4, Rick brought her back, and Carl brought her back, and Andrea brought her back. And we've seen her become, you know, a human again. And I think her relationship with Carl is so sweet and so wonderful to watch. You know, she has a smile that lights up a room, and yet in any moment that can drop and she'll just fucking kill everyone in sight because she has to. She's a badass who cares, much like Daryl. And I think the fact that she's come so far in such a short space of time, because she was introduced in the series 2 finale, I think, but even then we didn't know who she was, because she just stood up and looked down at Andrea and that was it. We didn't even see her face then. So to think that she spent most of season 3 quite quiet, and by the end of season 4 she's like a completely different person, and yet she can go back to being who she was when she was first introduced when she needs to. I find that fascinating, and she's gone on such a journey, and I very much look forward to seeing where she goes next. So top 3, and I think if you've watched my reactions or just know me, you'll probably know which 3 characters I'll be talking about now. But number 3 is Hershel, who I deeply, deeply miss in the show. Scott Wilson was fantastic in the show. He was a very stubborn man when we first met him, and you know, he didn't want to let Rick and his group into the farm or get attached to them, but you know, events played out and he had to, and he kind of became Rick's kind of emotional mentor, really, and he could always talk sense into him and say, Rick, you need to stop and listen to me, and he was never afraid of doing that, and he truly believed the world would get better, and the fact that even if it does, he's not going to be around to see it is awful and tragic. The love he has for his family and friends was unwavering, so you can see where Maggie gets it from. The way he just eventually learns to embrace how horrible the world has become and embrace these new people in his life is extraordinary, and I've loved watching it. I've loved watching him grow to accept Glen, and then to give him his watch, which he still has, and when Glen got that flu in the start of the season, he was looking after him, and he really, really shined in the first half of season 4 because he risked his life to help people get better, and he risked catching this flu that had been killing so many people just to gain the slightest of chances of making people better. And I just think he was an incredible character and a wonderful human being, and how lucky would you be to have someone like Hershel in your life? Which is why it's all the more sad when his life is taken away. And that really fucked me up, because he reminds me a lot of someone I used to know, and he's got a very special place in my heart, and I will miss him incredibly. I did feel his absence in the second half of season 4, and I think I'll always feel it. So number 2 is my girl, Carol. What a fucking badass. I think she rates so highly because she's probably gone on the biggest and most significant character journey in the show. From season 1, she was this sweet woman who was just happy to be abused by her husband and just do laundry and cook food for people. And that's kind of all she was doing at first, but I found that absolutely adorable. And then as time went on, she lost her husband, thank fuck. She lost her daughter, not so thank fuck. And she accepted she needed to change her ways to be able to survive in this world. And she's done that. And she's somehow become stone cold, yet still have a heart. And I think a lot of that comes from Melissa McBride's performance. I think she's fantastic. And I feel like if anyone else was playing her, maybe I wouldn't like Carol as much as I do. But I absolutely adore her, obviously. She's just been through so much, and yet she's still going on. And even if she's done some really questionable things like killing Karen and David, she's had her reasons for doing it, and sometimes you have to do bad things. That's just how it is. And I think she's the embodiment of that, really. You know, her relationship with Daryl, how that progressed was so sweet. And I'm really, really hoping they see each other again. That's why I really wanted to see her in the season 4 finale, because I was really, really hoping for a Carol and Daryl reunion. Maybe next season, we'll have to wait and see. But I love her interactions with so many different characters. And I really, really hope she does reunite with the main group again at some point. Because I think that would just be another way of showcasing how far she's come. And, of course, my number one favourite character in The Walking Dead, since his first introduction in episode 2 of the show, is T-Dog. And, you know, his character went through so much, and he had so many lines, and so much development. It was just extraordinary to watch. Of course I joke, it's Glen, it's always going to be Glen, because I fucking love Glen. What a guy. What a fucking guy. Ever since he was first introduced in episode 2 of the show, I liked Glen. He just seemed like such a nice person who deserved the world, but the world had gone to shit, so he would never be able to get the world. It's kind of a strange metaphor, ignore that bit. He's just so kind and loyal and awkwardly funny, and I see a lot of myself in Glen, not in a dirty way, and that's why I think I connected to him so much and why he's my absolute favourite. He's grown stronger physically and mentally as time's gone on. You know, he's got a really close bond with so many people in the group now, like Rick and Hershel. And seeing him meet Maggie and fall in love with her, it's just been a hell of a ride. And I cannot tell you how emotionally invested I am in Glen and Maggie together. And Glen as a person, seeing his unwillingness to give up on Maggie still being alive after they all got separated after the governor's attack on the prison, I think was inspirational and really deeply moving, and that's what made that payoff so good when they finally reunited. I also love his dedication to characters he may not even know that well, like Tara. When she got her foot stuck in the rubble, he absolutely refused to leave her side, and he would have died fighting to get her out of there. Simple as that, because that's who Glen is. He would see someone struggling in the street, and he would believe that there's someone who's worth saving. And he'd save them, or die trying. He has an absolute heart of gold. He's an incredible person who's been put through so much shit, even after everything he's been through. He's met some friends for life, he's fallen in love and gotten married. And I just feel like, even after everything that's happened, you could ask Glen, was it worth it? And he'd say yes. Because maybe a world without the dead walking, and a world without so much shit going on, wouldn't be worth it to Glen, because it would be a world without Maggie, and a world without people he's really grown to care about. Basically, Glen deserves the world doesn't deserve Glen. He's just fucking incredible, and I absolutely adore everything he does. So yeah, as it stands, that is my top 10 favourite characters in The Walking Dead. Obviously, that could change tomorrow if I just rethought about it, and maybe, you know, put Rick and Shane in there, or maybe even Carl at a stretch. You know, there are so many characters I love, you just couldn't fit them all in the top 10. That's kind of how it works. You know, I really like Sasha, I like Tara, I like Beth a hell of a lot more after this last season. But for now, those are my top 10. You may disagree, you may agree. Like, I'm living with a guy next year at uni who absolutely detests Carol and everything she is. and I'm just like, yeah, that's fine, you're entitled to your incorrect opinion, that's fine. And yet she's my second favourite character in the whole show. So, you know, it's all about your own opinion. So, you may hate characters I love, I may hate characters you love. That's fine. That's TV, that's characters, that's kind of how it works. But still, I hope you were at least interested by my list and my reasons why I love these characters. And yeah, thanks for watching, and I'll probably be seeing you for season 5. Bye!